I returned from military deployment to find 83 luxury condos built on my inherited land, only to discover the corrupt HOA had apparently forged my signature while I was overseas. When they saw Precision Demolition Services emblazoned on my truck door, their faces went pale. But could they truly imagine what I had planned for them? I couldn't believe my eyes. There they stood, rows of fancy condos with shiny windows and fresh paint, all sitting squarely on the land that belonged to me. My hands shook as I gripped the property map tighter. After 18 months serving my country overseas, I'd come home to find strangers living on the 5 acres my grandfather left me. "Excuse me, sir, can I help you?" A security guard approached, eyeing me suspiciously. "Yeah, you can tell me why there are buildings on my property." My voice was steady, despite my racing heart. The guard's radio crackled. "I've got someone at the south entrance claiming this is his land." Within minutes, a sleek, black SUV pulled up. Out stepped a woman in an expensive suit, her hair pulled back so tight it seemed to stretch her face. She extended a manicured hand. "I'm Brenda Harrison, president of Sunset Shores Homeowners Association, and you are?" "Alex Miller, owner of this land." I didn't take her hand. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "Mr. Miller, there must be some confusion. This development has been in progress for over a year. All proper channels were followed." I pulled out my phone, showing her photos of the empty land taken just before my deployment. "No confusion. This is my grandfather's property. I have the deed right here." I patted my jacket pocket. Brenda's smile faded slightly. "Perhaps we should discuss this in my office rather than making a scene." As we walked toward the community center, I noticed residents peeking through windows. Unexpectedly, one woman marched straight toward us. "Brenda, my sprinklers still aren't working, and maintenance keeps ignoring my calls." She stopped abruptly when she saw me. "Who's this?" "Just a small property matter, Karen. I'll handle your sprinklers this afternoon." Karen looked me up and down with narrowed eyes. "You're not moving in, are you? Because we have strict rules about lawn care and exterior modifications." "Actually, Mr. Miller was just leaving," Brenda cut in smoothly. Inside her office, Brenda's demeanor shifted entirely. She slid a stack of papers across her desk. "These are the rezoning approvals and purchase documents. As you can see, everything is in order." I flipped through them, stopping cold, when I saw a signature at the bottom. My signature, except I never signed anything. "This isn't my signature." Brenda sighed dramatically. "Mr. Miller, we sent multiple notices to your address. When we received signed approval, we proceeded legally. I was deployed overseas. I never received any notices, and I certainly never signed this." She leaned forward, her voice hardening. "Look, these condos house 83 families, people with children, elderly parents. What exactly do you expect to happen here?" Just then, my phone buzzed. It was a text from my business partner. "Welcome home, boss. When can you come by the office? New demolition contracts waiting for your signature." Brenda's eyes darted to the message preview. Her face went utterly pale as she noticed my company logo on my phone case. Precision Demolition Services. You're in the demolition business?" Her voice wavered noticeably. I stood up. "I am, and I don't appreciate finding my property essentially demolished and then rebuilt without my permission. Mr. Miller, be reasonable." "Oh, I'm going to be very reasonable," I assured her coolly. "I'll have my lawyer contact yours by the end of the day. In the meantime, I suggest you start figuring out how to explain to your board why you built luxury condos on stolen land." As I walked out, Karen, the resident from earlier, deliberately blocked my path. "I heard you arguing. Who do you think you are, causing trouble in our peaceful community?" I met her gaze directly. I'm the guy who owns the dirt under your feet, and frankly, I'd start packing if I were you. I climbed into my truck, the words Precision Demolition Services emblazoned proudly on the door. As I drove away, I watched Brenda and Karen huddled together in my rearview mirror, both frantically on their phones, gesturing wildly. That night, I spread my grandfather's old property maps across my kitchen table. The boundaries were crystal clear. The development encroached a full 200 feet onto my land. I immediately called my old army buddy, now a lawyer, David Chen. David, they built condos on my land while I was deployed and forged my signature on the documents. That's federal fraud, Alex, David stated grimly, especially since you were on active duty. The Service Members Civil Relief Act gives you special protections. How fast can we move on this? I need this resolved, David, fast. I'll file emergency injunctions tomorrow morning. But Alex, be prepared. This won't be easy. HOAs often have deep pockets and good connections. So do I replied determinedly. The next morning, I drove straight to the county records office. The clerk, an older woman named Helen Davies, actually remembered my grandfather. Such a shame what they've done to that beautiful property, she said, pulling the original deeds. Your grandfather wanted you to build your dream home there, you know. You know about the condos? I asked, surprised. She lowered her voice conspiratorially. Everyone knows, dear, but nobody says anything. Robert Harrison, Brenda's husband, he's got half the county board in his pocket. As she photocopied the original property surveys, she discreetly slipped me a note with a name and number. Call this person at the planning department. They've been waiting for someone brave enough to challenge the Harrisons. That afternoon, I parked across from the condos, meticulously taking photos of the property line markers that had clearly been moved. Suddenly, a tap on my window startled me. A woman about my age stood there, a press badge hanging around her neck. I'm Sarah Jenkins, Pinarest Gazette. Are you the owner fighting the Sunset Shores development? News travels fast in small towns, I muttered. Gossip travels faster than light, she smiled. Mind if I ask you a few questions? Before I could answer, a police cruiser pulled up abruptly. The officer approached, hand resting casually on his holster. Sir, we've had complaints about someone harassing residents and taking photos of children. That's ridiculous, Sarah interjected immediately. I've been watching him. He's just taking pictures of property markers. The officer looked uncomfortable. Just doing my job, ma'am. We got 3 separate calls. I showed him my property deed and military ID. I own this land. They built on it illegally while I was deployed overseas. He studied the documents carefully, then handed them back. My brother's in the Marines, he said, his tone shifting. This kind of thing, it isn't right. He lowered his voice significantly. Watch yourself with the Harrisons. They don't play fair. As he drove away, Sarah's eyes gleamed with professional interest. Okay, now I'm definitely interested in your story. The Harrisons calling the cops on a veteran defending his own property, that's headline material. Look, I'm not looking for headlines, I sighed. I just want my land back. So what are you going to do? Tear down 83 homes? She pressed. I looked at the families moving about, children playing on a playground that sat squarely on my property. I don't know yet, I admitted honestly, but I know what's mine. Little did I realize Brenda Harrison was watching intently from her office window, already planning her next move against me. 3 days passed in a blur of legal paperwork and intense phone calls. Then I woke to heavy pounding on my front door at 6:30 in the morning. Police, open up! 2 officers stood on my porch, along with Brenda Harrison and a man in an expensive suit I hadn't met before. Mr. Miller, the older officer said, we have a complaint that you've been making threats against Sunset Shores residents. That's absolutely false, I stated firmly. Brenda stepped forward dramatically. Multiple residents heard you say they should start packing and that you were going to demolish their homes. The man beside her nodded gravely. I'm Robert Harrison, Sunset Shores developer. My wife shared your threatening behavior with me. Our residents are terrified. I took a deep breath, maintaining composure. Officer, I informed Mrs. Harrison that I own the property where her condos are built. I did tell one resident she might want to consider her options, given the serious legal situation. That's not a threat, it's reality. He owns a demolition company. Brenda pointed emphatically to my truck in the driveway. He's planning to bulldoze homes with families inside. The younger officer nearby visibly snickered, then quickly composed himself. Ma'am, owning a demolition company isn't a crime. I invited them inside and showed them my military service records, property deeds, and the legal filings my lawyer had prepared. The signatures on their documents are forgeries. I was serving overseas when they claim I approved this development. The officers exchanged meaningful glances. The older one turned to the Harrisons. This appears to be a civil matter. I suggest you both work through the proper legal channels. When they left, Robert Harrison lingered pointedly on my porch. You have no idea who you're dealing with, Miller. I've built half this town, and now you've built on my land. Bad move, I retorted. His friendly mask slipped completely. Do you seriously think anyone will take your side against us? We provide jobs, tax revenue. You're just one angry man. An angry man with the law on his side, I shot back. That evening, a notice appeared taped to my door. Emergency HOA meeting. Attendance mandatory. I called David immediately. Can they force me to attend? I don't even belong to their HOA. They can't force you, David advised, but it might be smart to see what they're planning. I'll come with you. The community center was packed when we arrived. Whispers followed us as we took seats in the back. Brenda stood at the podium, Robert beside her, radiating confidence. Thank you all for coming on such short notice, she began, her voice smooth. As you may have heard, we're facing a challenge to our community's very existence. Gasps and murmurs filled the room. Brenda dramatically pointed in my direction. This man claims that our homes are built on his land. He owns a demolition company and has made it clear he intends to take action. The crowd turned as one, staring at me. Karen Peterson, the woman from my first day back, stood up. I have a question. If this man owns the land, why didn't he say something when construction started? Why wait until families moved in? Before I could answer, Robert stepped forward smoothly. Excellent question. The truth is, Mr. Miller approved the development, then conveniently changed his mind after seeing how valuable the property has become. I stood up, my voice ringing out. That's a lie. I was deployed overseas with the military. I never received any notices, and my signature was forged on your documents. A murmur ran through the crowd. An elderly man near the front spoke up. My grandson is in the army. Is it true you were serving our country when this happened? Brenda quickly cut in. Mr. Miller's employment is irrelevant. The fact is, we have signed documents. Abyss. Forged documents, David corrected loudly, from beside me. And 83 families now call Sunset Shores home, Brenda continued, playing to the crowd's emotions. Would you really make them homeless over a property dispute? The mood in the room shifted palpably as people looked at their neighbors worriedly. I scanned the faces, seeing fear and anger directed squarely at me. I stepped into the center of the room. I didn't create this situation. The Harrisons did when they built on land that wasn't theirs to develop. They didn't just steal from me, they sold you homes they had no right to sell. Just then, Sarah Jenkins, the reporter, slipped in through a side door, notepad in hand. Brenda noticed her instantly and frowned. This is a private meeting, Press isn't allowed. Actually, Sarah replied calmly, HOA meetings must be open to the public under State Law 33/1804, unless they're board-only executive sessions. Robert's face reddened with fury. This is an emergency session, which still must follow open meeting laws, Sarah finished coolly, taking a seat. I continued, addressing the residents directly. I understand everyone here bought their homes in good faith. You're not the ones I have a problem with. Then what do you want? Karen demanded. Justice, accountability, I declared, looking directly at the Harrisons, and to know why they specifically targeted my property while I was serving our country. Robert stepped menacingly toward me. This is ridiculous. We followed every legal procedure, including forging my signature. I shot back, pulling out copies of the documents. I've already filed a complaint with the FBI about this forgery. Falsifying documents, while the victim is on active military duty, carries enhanced federal penalties. The room went utterly silent. Brenda whispered urgently to Robert. David stood up beside me. My client isn't interested in making families homeless, he announced clearly. He's interested in holding accountable those who committed fraud. Karen wasn't satisfied. So what happens to our homes? Our life savings are tied up in these condos. Before I could answer, Robert cut in forcefully. Nothing will happen to your homes. This is a baseless claim that will be thrown out of court. Is it baseless? A man stood up near the back. I'm Marcus Bell, from the county surveyor's office. I've reviewed the original property lines. He held up official-looking maps. The southeastern portion of this development, approximately 38 units, is indeed built on Mr. Miller's land. Chaos erupted. People shouted questions, some directed at me, others furiously at the Harrisons. Through the commotion, I noticed Robert slip out a side door, phone pressed tightly to his ear. Brenda struggled to regain control. Everyone, please, this is just one opinion. Our surveys show different results. Marcus raised his voice over the din. Your survey was conducted by Harrison Development's in-house team, not an independent firm. The original property markers were moved. More shouting ensued. Karen pushed through the crowd toward me, her face distraught. You can't do this. My daughter just bought one of those units. She's pregnant with my first grandchild. I'm sorry, Karen, but I didn't create this situation, I replied, feeling a pang of sympathy despite her earlier hostility. You and your demolition company just want to tear everything down, she cried, tears streaming down her face. David put his hand on my shoulder. Alex, we should go. This is getting ugly. As we moved toward the exit, Sarah fell into step beside us. I need to interview you properly. This story is even bigger than I thought. Outside, Robert Harrison was waiting by my truck. Two large, imposing men stood silently with him. Miller, let's talk business. Name your price. This isn't about money, Harrison. He laughed cynically. Everything's about money. $10,000 a unit? That's over $800,000 for land you weren't even using. The land is worth far more than that, and you know it. Fine. $1 million cash. Walk away. Forget the forgery allegations. The casual mention of cash payments in front of witnesses showed just how confident, or perhaps desperate, he was. I shook my head firmly. See you in court. As we walked away, one of Robert's men called out ominously, Think about your demolition business, Miller. It would be a shame if your equipment started having accidents. David turned sharply. Did you just threaten my client? Because I'd love to add witness intimidation to our complaint. The man fell silent. Back at my house, Sarah reviewed my documents while David made calls. This goes beyond just your property, Sarah commented grimly. I've heard rumors for years about the Harrisons pushing out other landowners, but I never had solid proof until now. David hung up the phone. Judge Evans is hearing our emergency injunction tomorrow at 9 a.m. The Harrisons have been served. Just then, my doorbell rang insistently. A sheriff's deputy stood outside, holding papers. Michael Miller, this is a cease and desist order preventing you from entering Sunset Shores property or contacting residents. He handed me the documents. You're also prohibited from operating demolition equipment within 500 feet of the development. As the deputy left, we reviewed the order in disbelief. It was signed by Judge Cole, Robert Harrison's former law partner. They're trying to keep you away from your own property, David exclaimed, already typing furiously on his laptop. We'll get this overturned tomorrow. Suddenly, Sarah's phone buzzed repeatedly with messages. Something's happening at Sunset Shores, she announced, scrolling quickly. Multiple residents are texting me. We turned on the local news. A reporter stood dramatically in front of the condos. Breaking news from Sunset Shores, where residents have just been informed that their homes may be in jeopardy due to a contentious property dispute. Developer Robert Harrison has announced an emergency residents meeting tonight to discuss defending our community from outside threats. The camera panned to show residents gathering, many looking angry and frightened. Prominently among them was Karen, holding a hastily made sign that read, "Protect our homes from Demolition Man." They're turning the residents against you, David said grimly. It's more than that, Sarah added perceptively. They're creating a public narrative where you're the villain threatening innocent families. Classic Harrison tactic. I stared at the screen, watching more people join the gathering, their faces worried and angry, all directed at me. This just got a whole lot harder, didn't it? Yes, David admitted soberly, but we have something they don't. What's that? The truth, and tomorrow we show it to the judge. Blood pounded in my ears as I pushed through the courthouse doors the next morning. Camera flashes lit up the hallway like lightning. Someone shoved a microphone aggressively in my face. Mr. Miller, will you really demolish homes with families inside? I kept walking, David's steady hand on my shoulder guiding me forward. The imposing courtroom doors loomed ahead, where Judge Evans would decide if my injunction against Sunset Shores would stand. Ignore them, David whispered. Remember, stick to the facts. Inside, the Harrisons sat flanked by 4 lawyers in expensive suits. Brenda wore a conservative blue dress that practically screamed, "Trustworthy community leader." Robert's face turned a blotchy red when he saw me. Karen Peterson sat directly behind them, along with other visibly angry residents. Judge Evans entered, a stern-faced woman with reading glasses perched precisely on her nose. This is an emergency hearing for case number 47293, Miller versus Sunset Shores Homeowners Association. I've reviewed the filings. Let's begin. For 2 intense hours, lawyers argued back and forth. The Harrisons' team presented doctored photos, claiming construction had started before my deployment. Their surveyor swore their property lines were correct. A carefully orchestrated parade of residents testified about their fear of losing their homes. When my turn came, I simply presented my grandfather's original deed, my military deployment papers, and the county's official undisputed survey. Your Honor, I stated clearly, I never received notice of this development. I never signed any documents. I was serving my country when the Harrisons knowingly built on my land and then sold it to unsuspecting families. Judge Evans meticulously studied the signatures on the documents presented by the HOA. These signatures do not appear to match Mr. Miller's military records, she observed calmly. Brenda Harrison shot to her feet. Your Honor, if I may. You may not, Judge Evans cut her off sharply. I find sufficient evidence to grant a temporary injunction. No further construction will proceed on the disputed property until a full hearing determines ownership. Robert Harrison exploded. This is outrageous. Do you know how much money? Mr. Harrison, control yourself or I will hold you in contempt. The judge warned sternly. Outside the courtroom, reporters swarmed us again. Sarah pushed through the crowd urgently. "Alex, I found something. You need to see this right away." We huddled in a small, empty conference room down the hall. Sarah opened her laptop and played a video. "This is security footage from County Hall, dated last year. Watch." The grainy video showed Robert Harrison entering the records department after hours, accompanied by a security guard. They removed files from a cabinet, then returned moments later with different papers. "That's the night before they filed for the development permit," Sarah explained breathlessly. "The guard admitted, under pressure, that they replaced your original property records with altered versions." David leaned forward, eyes wide. "This is huge. With this evidence..." Suddenly, the door burst open. Karen Peterson stood there, eyes wild with anger. "You got what you wanted. Are you happy now? They just told us our homes might be torn down." I stood up quickly. "Karen, no one said anything about tearing down homes. The injunction just stops new construction." "Liar! The Harrison said you're forcing everyone out in 30 days. Sarah stepped forward. "They're manipulating you, Karen. I'm a reporter. I've seen the court order. It doesn't say anything about evictions." Karen's lips trembled. But Robert said..." "Robert Harrison is being investigated for document fraud," David explained gently. "Think about it. Why would he lie about the court order? Perhaps to turn you against Alex, instead of facing the consequences himself?" Confusion flickered across Karen's face. I don't understand. We paid for our homes. We have deeds. Deeds to property that wasn't legally theirs to sell," I stated sadly, "but that doesn't mean I want to hurt innocent families." Heavy footsteps approached rapidly. Robert Harrison appeared in the doorway, flanked by 2 security guards. "There you are, Peterson. Get away from him. He's dangerous." I stepped forward, facing him directly. "The only dangerous person here is you, Harrison, forging documents, lying to residents." "Careful, Miller. Slander is a serious offense." His eyes darted nervously to Sarah's laptop. "What are you showing her?" Sarah quickly closed her computer. "Just some interesting security footage from County Hall. You're quite photogenic, breaking into the records office, Robert." Robert's face went completely pale. He grabbed Karen's arm roughly. "We're leaving, now." As they walked away, Karen glanced back at us, unmistakable doubt written across her face. That night, a brick crashed violently through my living room window. Attached was a crudely written note. "Drop the case, or next time, it's not a brick." I called the police, but instinctively knew it would lead nowhere. While waiting, I scrolled distractedly through old photos on my phone and froze. It was a picture of me and Jessica, my ex-wife, standing on my grandfather's land 3 years ago. Jessica, who had worked as a legal assistant before our divorce. Jessica, who knew exactly where my property boundaries lay and precisely how much the land was worth. A sickening realization washed over me. I immediately dialed Sarah's number. "Sarah, I need you to look into someone for me. My ex-wife, Jessica Miller. I think she might be connected to this somehow." "What makes you think that?" "Just a hunch," I said, though it felt like more. "She knows the property well, and, well, she wasn't happy when my grandfather left it solely to me instead of us, jointly." 2 days later, Sarah called back, her voice urgent. "Alex, you need to see this, now." We met at a downtown coffee shop. She showed me bank records, obtained discreetly from a helpful courthouse clerk. Jessica had received 4 separate payments of $25,000 from Harrison Development, starting just 1 month after my deployment began. My coffee cup froze halfway to my lips. She sold me out." "There's more," Sarah continued grimly. "She's been working at Harrison's main office under her maiden name." The betrayal hit me like a physical blow. I had trusted Jessica with everything, including, years ago, keys to my grandfather's old property box, where he kept important papers. "We need to talk to her," Sarah urged. "She might be willing to testify about what she knows now." "She won't," I said bitterly. "Jessica would never admit to doing something wrong." Sarah squeezed my hand sympathetically. "People surprise you sometimes, Alex, especially when their own freedom is potentially at stake." Before I could respond, my phone rang. It was David. "Alex, get to my office right now. The FBI just called. They're opening an investigation into the Harrisons for fraud against a service member." As we raced towards David's office, I spotted a familiar car parked just outside. Jessica's red Audi. My heart pounded against my ribs as I pushed through the office door. And there she sat, looking smaller than I remembered, her eyes red-rimmed from crying. "Hello, Alex," she said softly, her voice barely audible. I think it's time I told you what really happened." Jessica's hands shook as she clutched her coffee cup tightly. "I never meant for it to go this far," she whispered. We sat in David's sparsely furnished office, me, Jessica, David, and Sarah. FBI agent Davis listened intently from the corner, a small recorder running silently on the table. "Start from the beginning, Mrs. Miller," Agent Davis prompted gently but firmly. Jessica took a deep, shuddering breath. "After we divorced, I couldn't find good work. Robert Harrison approached me at a bar one night. He knew who I was, knew who Alex was. He offered me a job." "Doing what?" I asked, my voice tight. "Information at first. Just details about which local service members owned valuable undeveloped land. Later, he wanted access to documents. She wouldn't meet my eyes. He said they'd make legitimate offers. I believed him." "Until when?" Agent Davis pressed. "Until I saw the forged signatures on Alex's paperwork. I confronted Robert. He just laughed and said no one would ever know, especially with Alex deployed." Anger bubbled hot inside me. "You gave them access to my grandfather's property box? The one place he kept everything important?" "Gus." A single tear slid down Jessica's cheek. "I'm so sorry, Alex. I was angry about the divorce, about getting nothing from your grandfather's will. It felt like payback at first." Sarah leaned forward. "What changed your mind? Why come forward now?" "Yesterday," Jessica sniffled, "Robert and Brenda were talking in the office. They didn't know I was there. They said once they won this case, they planned to develop the rest of Alex's land too, and that they'd take care of him if he kept fighting." Jessica shuddered violently. It sounded like a direct threat. Agent Davis closed his notebook. "Mrs. Miller, we'll need you to sign a formal statement detailing all of this. In exchange for your full cooperation, the U.S. attorney may consider leniency regarding your involvement." After Jessica left with the agent, I sat in stunned silence, processing the layers of betrayal and deceit. "This changes everything," David declared, breaking the silence. "With Jessica's testimony and the security footage, we can bring significant criminal charges against the Harrisons." "But what about the residents?" I asked, the image of Karen's desperate face flashing in my mind. "They're still stuck in the middle of this mess." Just then, Sarah's phone buzzed insistently. She checked it, and her eyes widened in disbelief. "You are not going to believe this. Robert Harrison just announced another emergency meeting at Sunset Shores tonight. He's telling everyone they need to pay $50,000 each, immediately, for legal defense funds or risk losing their homes. He's milking them for more money before he potentially runs," David realized instantly. We raced back to Sunset Shores. The community center overflowed with angry, frightened residents. Robert and Brenda stood arrogantly at the front, actively collecting checks and even cash. "This is totally illegal," Sarah whispered furiously as we slipped unnoticed into the back. "They can't demand payments like this without proper procedure." Karen spotted us and hurried over, her face a mask of desperation and confusion. "What are you doing here? Haven't you caused enough trouble?" "Karen, they're scamming you again," I explained urgently. "There's no legal defense fund. They're planning to take your money and disappear." "More lies," she hissed, but a flicker of doubt crept into her voice. I pointed toward the front. "Look how they're taking cash and checks. No receipts, no official paperwork. Does that seem legitimate to you?" Brenda's voice rose above the crowd, smooth and falsely reassuring. "Everyone, please. Your generous contributions will ensure we can fight off this malicious attack on our community." I couldn't stay silent any longer. "That's not true," I shouted, stepping forward into the aisle. The room fell completely silent. Robert's face twisted with pure fury. "Security, remove this man." "Before you do," I continued, my voice ringing with conviction, "you should all know the FBI is actively investigating the Harrisons for fraud. They forged documents to build on my land, and now they're trying to steal more of your hard-earned money before they get caught." Chaos erupted again. People shouted questions, demanding answers. Robert lunged toward the exit, clutching a box filled with checks. "Stop him!" Karen yelled unexpectedly, surprising everyone, including herself. She bravely blocked the door. "Give us back our money." Two other residents grabbed Robert restrainingly. The box tumbled, scattering checks across the floor like confetti. Brenda tried to slip out a side door unnoticed, but Sarah deftly blocked her path. "Going somewhere, Mrs. Harrison? I think the FBI would like a word." As if on cue, police sirens wailed outside. Agent Davis entered swiftly with 4 uniformed officers. "Robert and Brenda Harrison, you're under arrest for fraud, forgery, and conspiracy against a U.S. service member." As they were handcuffed, Robert snarled venomously at me. "This isn't over, Miller. I've got friends in high places." "Not for long," Agent Davis replied coolly. "We're investigating those friends, too." Later that night, the weary residents gathered in the community center yet again. This time, however, it was to hear the unvarnished truth from me. "I know you're scared," I began, looking out at their anxious faces. "You bought homes here in good faith. You didn't know they were built on stolen land." "So what happens now?" Karen asked, her voice trembling slightly. "Do we lose everything?" I shook my head firmly. "That's not what I want. You're victims in this too." David stood beside me. "We've prepared a proposal. Mr. Miller is willing to sell the disputed land directly to the current homeowners at a fair market value, minus the amounts you've already paid to the Harrisons." Murmurs of cautious hope spread through the crowd. "And," I added, "for any veterans or active service members living here, I'll reduce that price by an additional 25%. A man in the back stood up. "Why? Why would you do this? You could make a lot more money selling the whole parcel to developers." "Because it's the right thing to do," I replied simply. "My grandfather wanted this land to help secure my future. Honestly, helping 83 families keep their homes honors his memory better than tearing everything down for profit ever could." For the first time in weeks, I saw genuine smiles instead of anger or fear directed my way. Karen approached me after the meeting officially ended. I misjudged you, Alex. We all did. It was an easy mistake," I acknowledged. "Most demolition experts aren't exactly known for building communities." She actually laughed, the sound relieved. "What about the extra land? The part they hadn't developed yet?" I looked out the window at the silhouette of trees beyond the condos, standing dark against the twilight sky. "I'm keeping that part. My grandfather always wanted me to build a home there someday. Next to all of us, even after how we treated you?" she asked, still somewhat incredulous. "Everyone deserves a second chance," I said, thinking momentarily of Jessica and her tearful, potentially self-serving confession. "Even me." As I walked towards my truck under the emerging stars, Sarah fell into step beside me. That was quite a speech back there, a very generous offer. It wasn't just generosity, Sarah. It felt like the only right solution. She smiled. You know, this story could really use a happy ending. Mind if I follow up in a few months? See how Sunset Shores is doing under new resident-led management? I looked back at the community center where residents were already forming committees, discussing bylaws, and planning their future together. Something tangible had shifted tonight. Instead of enemies, we were becoming neighbors, finding a path forward together. I'd like that, I said sincerely. I have a feeling this community story is just beginning. Through the rain-streaked windows of the coffee shop, I could see her wiping down counters, completely unaware I was about to walk back into her life. Lightning cracked brightly across the late-night sky as I parked outside Jessica's place. My hands trembled slightly as I reached for the door handle. Not from anger anymore, but from the lingering shock of betrayal that still felt surprisingly fresh. The bell above the door jingled softly as I entered. Jessica froze mid-wipe, the cloth still pressed against the cool marble counter. "Alex?" Her voice was barely a whisper. I didn't expect to see you." "Funny how people keep saying that to me lately," I replied, shaking rain from my jacket. "We need to talk. We're closed." Her eyes darted nervously towards the locked door. "This can't wait." I placed the folder Sarah had given me firmly on the counter. Inside were the bank records and surveillance photos. "I know what you did, Jessica." Her shoulders slumped in defeat as she looked down at the damning photographs of her meeting with Robert Harrison. How did you find out? Does it really matter? You sold information about my property, my deployment, while I was overseas, supposedly fighting for our country. She flinched visibly at my words. "It wasn't supposed to happen like this," she insisted weakly. "Robert said they just wanted to make you a fair offer." "And you believed him?" I scoffed incredulously. "The man builds things for a living, Jessica. He knows exactly what land is worth, especially undeveloped land bordering his existing projects." Rain pounded harder against the large front windows as Jessica's eyes filled with tears. "After the divorce, I couldn't keep up with the payments here. The bank was going to take the coffee shop," she choked out. "So you decided to help someone take my land instead?" I kept my voice level, though inside I felt like screaming. "Robert paid me $50,000, she admitted, unable to meet my gaze, "for information about your deployment schedule, property boundaries. He promised it would all be handled legally." Suddenly, the bell jingled again. Brenda Harrison stood in the doorway, water dripping from her expensive raincoat, looking furious. Well, isn't this cozy?" Her voice was pure ice. "Jessica, you promised he wouldn't discover our little arrangement." Jessica's face hardened instantly. "And you promised this would be handled legally. You said Alex would be compensated fairly." Brenda laughed, the sound sharp and cruel. "Legal is whatever we say it is in Pinarest, darling. Robert has judges in his pocket and the mayor on speed dial." "Not anymore," I revealed, holding up the small, activated recording device I'd placed on the table between us. Brenda's eyes widened in alarm as she lunged for it. "You wouldn't dare use that!" Her perfectly manicured nails scratched desperately at my hand. Just then, from the back room, Sarah Jenkins emerged, her professional camera already rolling. "Actually, he would," Sarah stated calmly. "And so would I." Brenda backed away slowly. "This is illegal. You can't record without consent." "One-party consent state," Sarah replied with a tight smile. "And Alex here consented. Plenty." Jessica looked between the three of us, confusion clear on her face. What's happening?" "Justice," I said simply. Brenda's phone buzzed urgently. She glanced at it, then smiled suddenly, regaining her composure. "It doesn't matter what you record. Robert has already taken care of everything. Meaning what? I demanded warily. Meaning, she sneered, your little demolition company just lost its operating license, effective immediately. Tragic safety violations were discovered this afternoon. And, she added with relish, checking her perfectly polished nails, Judge Cole has just signed an order preventing you from coming within 500 feet of Sunset Shores. Forever. Before I could even react to this devastating blow, the coffee shop door swung open again. This time, FBI Agent Davis stepped inside, badge already prominently displayed. Brenda Harrison, we have some questions for you regarding fraudulent real estate transactions and the intimidation of military personnel. Brenda's smug smile vanished instantly. Do you know who my husband is? She sputtered indignantly. Yes, ma'am, Agent Davis nodded calmly. He's the man we arrested about 20 minutes ago at your main office. He nodded curtly to two more agents who had entered silently behind him. We'll need you to come with us. As the agents led a stunned Brenda away, Jessica sank weakly into a nearby chair. What happens to me now? I looked at her, this woman I had once loved, who had betrayed me so deeply, yet now seemed genuinely remorseful, caught in a web of her own making. That depends, I said quietly, on whether you're willing to help make this right. Sarah touched my arm gently. Alex, there's something else you need to know. According to my sources, the residents are being evicted tomorrow morning. All 83 families. What? That wasn't part of any court order? No, Sarah confirmed grimly. It seems to be Robert's final act of revenge before his arrest became public. He's claiming sudden, severe structural issues require immediate evacuation of all buildings. She showed me frantic text messages already coming in from panicked residents. Karen Peterson's pregnant daughter apparently has nowhere else to go. I stared out at the rain-soaked street, where FBI agents were helping a protesting Brenda Harrison into an unmarked black SUV. Sometimes, even when you win, it feels a lot like losing. I need to make a call, I said, reaching for my phone with renewed determination. Bulldozers lined up ominously along the edge of the property, their bright yellow paint stark against the grey early morning fog. News vans clustered nearby, reporters sipping coffee and checking cameras, anticipating conflict. I stood watching from my truck, the weight of what came next pressing heavily on my shoulders. David approached, legal papers clutched firmly in his hand. All signed by Judge Evans this morning. You're officially back in control of your property, Alex. The fraudulent restraining order is void. Did they all get out? I asked quietly, scanning the seemingly deserted condo buildings. Last family left about an hour ago, he confirmed, following my gaze. You sure about this, Alex? After everything? No one would blame you for tearing it all down. Before I could answer, Karen Peterson's car screeched to a halt beside us. She jumped out, surprisingly still wearing house slippers, her face contorted with rage. You monster! She screamed, rushing towards me. My daughter is 8 months pregnant, and she spent last night sleeping on my couch. Are you happy now? Mrs. Peterson, David began protectively, but I raised a hand to stop him. Karen, I said calmly but firmly, I need you to listen carefully. Where are the other residents staying right now? She blinked, thrown off balance by my question. What? Wherever they can. Hotels, friends' houses. I heard some are sleeping in their cars. I handed her a thick stack of papers I'd had David prepare overnight. Give these to everyone. Tell them they need to be back here by noon. What is this? She asked, looking at the top sheet suspiciously. New housing contracts. David smiled beside me, understanding dawning in his eyes. Legal ones this time. Alex isn't demolishing the condos, Mrs. Peterson. He's selling them to their current residents at significantly below market price. Karen's mouth opened and closed several times, no sound coming out. But the news said, the news got it wrong, I stated simply. I nodded towards the imposing bulldozers. Those aren't here to tear down homes, Karen. They're here to clear land for a community playground and garden on the undeveloped portion of my property. Tears suddenly filled Karen's eyes, spilling down her cheeks. Why? Why would you do this? After everything we did, everything we said. You didn't do anything to me, Karen. The Harrisons did, I corrected gently. I looked toward the condo where her daughter lived. No child should start life homeless because adults couldn't play fair. As Karen rushed off, clutching the papers, eager to spread the unexpected good news, Sarah approached with her camera crew. Ready for your statement, Alex? As I'll ever be, I sighed, bracing myself. The cameras rolled as residents began returning cautiously, clutching the papers I'd sent, hope warring with confusion on their faces. Remarkably, Jessica stood at the edge of the slowly gathering crowd, quietly helping an elderly couple carry their bags back towards their unit. Today marks a new beginning for Sunset Shores, I said clearly into the microphones. The FBI investigation revealed that the Harrisons systematically forged documents and likely bribed officials to build illegally on my land. But the families who bought these homes in good faith did nothing wrong. Murmurs rippled through the growing crowd. That's why I'm offering to sell each unit to its current legal occupant at half of the current assessed market value, with additional discounts for veterans and first responders, as previously discussed. The new Sunset Shores will be resident-owned and resident-managed, not controlled by developers who put profit over people. Cheers erupted, tentative at first, then growing stronger. Agent Davis, standing near his FBI vehicle observing, offered a slight approving smile. What about the Harrisons? Someone shouted from the crowd. They'll have their day in court, I replied firmly, but today isn't about them. It's about rebuilding trust and starting fresh, right here in this community. As the cameras turned away to capture the residents' reactions, Karen approached again, this time with her heavily pregnant daughter beside her. I truly misjudged you, Karen admitted, her voice thick with emotion. We all did. Easy mistake, I replied with a small, weary smile. Most demolition experts don't usually end up building communities. Later that evening, as a brilliant orange sunset painted the sky, I walked the contested property line where this whole ordeal began. Sarah joined me, her press badge now tucked away. You know, you could have made millions selling this land to another developer, she commented quietly. Money isn't everything, Sarah. No, she conceded, but it's not nothing. You gave up potentially a lot today. I watched as residents moved furniture back into their homes, neighbors helping neighbors unload cars and carry boxes. Jessica was still there too, coordinating volunteers, distributing water bottles. I think I gained something better, I said softly. My grandfather wanted this land to create something lasting. Now, maybe it finally will. Sarah's hand found mine briefly in the fading light. The story's already getting national attention online. Demolition Man builds community instead of tearing it down. You're going to be famous, Alex. I laughed tiredly. Right now, I'd settle for just being at peace. And are you at peace? She asked gently. I thought about Jessica's betrayal, now complicated by her efforts to make amends. I thought about Karen's remarkable transformation from my most vocal critic to a grateful ally. I thought about the land itself, which had nearly torn us all apart, but was now, somehow, bringing people together. Getting there, I replied, watching as lights began to switch on in homes that finally, rightfully belonged to their owners, one brick at a time. This story serves as a powerful reminder that integrity and doing the right thing often require immense courage, especially when faced with corruption and powerful opposition. While vengeance or maximizing personal gain might seem tempting pathways, choosing empathy and seeking solutions that benefit the wider community, even those who initially wronged you, can lead to far more meaningful and lasting outcomes. True strength lies not just in fighting for what's yours, but in building something positive from the wreckage, fostering reconciliation, and recognizing the shared humanity even in difficult circumstances. What did you think of Alex's journey and his final decision? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more stories.